Aerotech's Automation 1 instructional video series. Aerotech is a company that solves your toughest precision motion and automation challenges. Automation 1 is a motion control platform consisting of software-based controls and development tools, plus hardware-based drives for servo motors and other devices. In this video, we will review how to work with machine controller definition files in the Automation 1 Studio application. My name is Patrick Wheeler, and I am a product manager for Aerotech. Before we jump into the Studio application here, let me just kind of go over what a machine controller definition file is. First of all, it has the file extension .mcd for machine controller definition, and it contains the following items about your controller. First, the controller name. Second, the HyperWire motion control bus settings, the access control settings for your controller, all of the parameters and machine setup information for all of your controller parameters and drive parameters, the calibration files and how they are applied, any program automation settings, the MachineApps HMI screens, and finally, all of your controller files. And what value is the MCD file to the user? Machine and system builders can use the MCD to quickly duplicate their controller architecture on a new system or machine. It's also sometimes very convenient for communicating back to Aerotech for troubleshooting issues. It makes it very quick for us to duplicate your complete setup and help you in your troubleshooting efforts. First, let's take a look at the Automation 1 architecture before we jump into the application. The Automation 1 platform architecture includes the Automation 1 MDK, which has the Studio, Status Utility, and Machine Apps applications, as well as the console. These all talk directly through our .NET API to our controller, the Automation 1-ISMC. This can be either locally on the same computer, or it can be remotely when the computer is actually like an embedded PC or drive-based controller. So the machine control definition file really defines everything on that controller. So let's look at the application. Right now, my local controller is configured with the MCD file for this laser sample system. Let me connect. When I jump into the Automation 1 Studio application, I can go to the Configure Workspace, the Administration screen, and I can choose to save this MCD file. You'll see I get the selection of all these different items that I can download with the machine controller definition file. That includes the name, HyperWire settings, access control, parameters, calibration, program automation, skip over C transformations, my machine apps, and my controller file. Let me choose a location. I'll name it Laser Sample System. I'll save that. And now that's saved. This means I should feel confident to completely delete any controller files. And this is fine, I can my signal log. And also to restore my default parameters, essentially blowing away all the parameters I set up on this controller. Now, let's just say I wanted to completely change the controller's functionality. I can actually upload a different MCD file that I have saved on my Windows file system, and you'll see lots of things will change here on my controller. Let me actually select HyperWire as well. I'll upload this. And the first thing you'll see is there was a problem. This machine controller definition file was configured to not operate in virtual mode. So now I need to go to Machine Setup Utility and investigate that problem. Here we go. I can switch to virtual mode. Hit Next. And I can close out of this, save that setting, and now my controller will run. You'll see in this MCD file, if I go to my calibration screen, I have a 1D and a 2D axis calibration configured. If I go and look at my program automation, you'll see that I do indeed have a program automation file configured. If I go back and look at my file system, you'll see that finally, if you go to here and just look at the things that you did upload, the controller name changed, the HyperWire settings changed, the access control. Let's go take a look at that next. Your parameters and your machine setup definitely changed. And then your calibration was updated, and program automation And let's look at this machine apps as well. So going to machine apps, now I actually do have a machine app that is designed and installed here to run. If I go to my access control, which is right here, you'll see access control is indeed enabled on this controller, which means if I disconnect from this controller now and try to reconnect, now I must log in with my access control setting. All of that happened automatically with one file. So just to prove the parameters are different, we can go to the configure workspace, and I can use my quick compare tool, and I can select my laser sample system parameters, and I can look here at, for example, compare the X sample axis to the X axis, which hold axis position 0. And you can see there's several things that are different, as this highlights the differences between the two. So that's a nice way to do a quick comparison between what was actually changed. Same thing on the y-axis. I can change this and compare the y to the y and see again several parameters changed between these two files. So heading back to my configure workspace in the administration window, I can actually go to my controller files first, and I can delete all of these files from the controller. I can actually go to my administration screen. I can restore all default parameters. I'll hide this. I can upload my previous MCD, my laser sample system, including my HyperWire settings. And now you'll see everything is back to normal, what it was when I started. Very quick to change between two different control schemes using the MCD file format. That concludes this instructional video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about working with machine controller definition files in the Automation1 Studio application.